Why did Anakin have Sith eyes when he fought Obi-Wan? One thing that many fans find weird was that Anakin never had Sith-colored eyes when he fought Obi-Wan, but had them just moments before their fight. Well, when we saw Anakin kill the Separatist leaders, he was fully corrupted by the dark side, which is why we saw him have these colored eyes. However, right after this, he then ran out to see Padme, where he was filled with nothing but joy, and in a way, it was almost as if he was a completely different person. It wasn't until he eventually saw Obi-Wan where he then became enraged, but by that point, his emotions were already going back and forth. We can only assume that because of his mixed emotions, he wasn't corrupted enough to have Sith-colored eyes. Why don't Anakin and Obi-Wan's lightsabers touch here? One scene that many fans criticize is during the duel on Mustafar, Anakin and Obi-Wan's lightsabers don't touch here. Many believe that it was a pointless moment, however crazy enough, there's actually an explanation to why this happened. In the official novelization, it mentions that during their duel, their blade-to-blade combat was identical. After thousands of hours in lightsaber sparring, they knew each other better than brothers, and were the complementary halves of a single warrior. Because of this, no matter what move they performed, one of them would always have a counter against the other. This proved how well they knew each other, as well as the relationship they had as both master and apprentice. Why couldn't Anakin sense that Obi-Wan was on Padme's ship on Mustafar? In Revenge of the Sith, we all know that Obi-Wan was hiding on Padme's ship when she arrived on Mustafar, but since Anakin and Obi-Wan were best friends, why couldn't he sense him? Well, after Anakin killed all the Separatist leaders, he was shocked to see Padme's ship, and it threw him completely off guard. However, as he then rushed over to her, he was mixed with emotions, and although he was thrilled to see her, he was also filled with pure rage. Because of this rage, it blocked his ability to sense Obi-Wan, and in a way, it was almost as if he lost his connection to him. So despite how close they were, Anakin's rage consumed him way too much for him to sense him. What if Anakin never fell to the dark side? Have you ever wondered what would have happened if Anakin never turned to the dark side and instead just stayed with Padme? Well, in one of Vader's visions, he imagined just that and what his life should have been like. In the vision, he was supposed to be a Jedi Master and was known as a hero for defeating the Sith and for saving Mace Windu's life. Not only this, but him and Padme would have also had their own son together that was named Jin, who was of course named after Qui-Gon Jinn. Eventually, Padme would have been elected as the new Supreme Chancellor, and the two of them would have lived a happy and peaceful life together. What was the only thing that Anakin hated about the Clone Wars? Although Anakin enjoyed fighting throughout the Clone Wars, there was one part about the war that he actually hated. As the war went on, Anakin thought it was embarrassing that the Jedi played by so many rules to be keepers of the peace. Because of this, he believed that they were cowards, and he even told himself that he wouldn't be surprised if they eventually lost the war. In Anakin's eyes, he was convinced that the other Jedi weren't going far enough to do what it took to win, and due to this, he saw them as weak. By the end of the war, Anakin accepted the fact that this wasn't the same Jedi Order that he once fantasized as a child. What happened when Palpatine took a young Anakin Skywalker clubbing? After a long day of Jedi training, Palpatine approached the 12-year-old Anakin to take him on a small adventure. To do so, they traveled together to the lower levels of Coruscant, where Anakin would then see how life was outside of the Jedi Temple. Upon arriving, Palpatine took the young boy to a club, where he started to tell Anakin of all the scum and villainy that takes place around there. He then mentioned how this place was even filled with corrupt senators, and that they only really care about themselves. As they watched one of the senators gamble, Palpatine then wished that his chance cubes would turn against him so that he would lose all his money. Anakin, using the Force, turned the chance cubes against the senator, leading to him losing and the two of them giggling about what just happened. This moment would be one of the many seeds that Sidious planted towards manipulating his future apprentice. What was Anakin's nickname throughout the Republic? Although we all know that Anakin was beloved throughout the entire Republic, did you know they actually gave him a nickname? Well, instead of the Chosen One, or as we like to call him, the Youngling Slayer, Anakin's nickname was actually the Hero with No Fear. In the public's eye, they saw Anakin as a brave warrior and somebody that wasn't afraid of anything. As he started to become more popular, he was broadcasted all throughout the galaxy on the news, and people began to love him. Little did they know, however, Anakin did in fact fear one thing, and that was losing his wife. Why did Anakin think the Jedi were evil? In episode 3, one line that Anakin mentioned was that the Jedi were evil, but have you ever wondered as to why he thought this? Well, thankfully there's an explanation for this. By this point, Anakin thought they were evil because of how much they've changed. As a young boy, he saw the Jedi as keepers of the peace, but over the years, he felt like they became corrupt and were full of their own pride. He also felt extremely disrespected, as he was recognized as the Chosen One, but still somehow was denied the rank of Master. As time went on, it began to rub him the wrong way, knowing that the Council didn't trust him, yet still expected him to do their dirty work such as spying on the Chancellor. This changed his view on the Jedi, leading him to seeing them as both deceitful and evil. What secret did Anakin tell Obi-Wan right after he died? Seconds after Anakin died in Return of the Jedi, he entered a strange void where he started seeing memories with all the people he loved most in his life. However, then out of nowhere, Obi-Wan appeared right before him, and as soon as he saw him, Anakin started apologizing for all the horrible things he had done. Before Obi-Wan had the chance to speak, Anakin also mentioned there was something he never told him, and it was that years ago when he buried his mother, he promised himself that he would learn how to save people from dying, but sadly, he only did the complete opposite. Obi-Wan then told him that yeah, his choices were bad, but he can't take blame for the rest of the galaxy, and instead, all he can do now is learn from his mistakes. Obi-Wan then said to Anakin that there was one final lesson for him to learn, and that would be to become a Force ghost. How did Anakin react to seeing Palpatine kill the Jedi? Although we all know that Palpatine sliced up 3 Jedi Masters within just seconds, Anakin's reaction to this might surprise you. In an off-screen moment, Anakin ran into Palpatine's office, where he then all of a sudden saw Kit Fisto's head lying on the top of his desk. Crazy enough, he was actually shocked to see this, because although Fisto's head was cut off, he still was somehow smiling. The more Anakin thought about it, the more he started to think about Geonosis, and how he always kept that same smile even while in battle. As Anakin was about to leave, he then thought to himself that maybe Kit Fisto thought that death was funny as well. What was everything that Anakin did on Mustafar? As Anakin arrived on Mustafar, he walked into the room where the Separatists were and used the Force to shut every door around him. Although we never saw it in the film, a lot of these Separatists were screaming and crying in horror, but Anakin didn't care, as he then ignited his lightsaber and taunted them while he slaughtered them all. However, 3 of these Separatists were able to escape into the next room, but this made no difference because Anakin went on to kill them as well, and as he did this, he was smiling out of pure joy. After they were all defeated, he then stood outside and took a few minutes to watch over the lava bank, but he started to tear up. He was crying not because of what he just did, but because he was no longer the Jedi that he always dreamed of becoming. Anakin then tried to erase these thoughts and went back into the main room to tell Palpatine that the job was done. Who is the most powerful Jedi that Anakin killed during Order 66? We all know that Anakin killed many Jedi throughout Order 66, but did you know there was one that was known to be one of the most powerful? Well, when Anakin marched the temple, he came face to face with a Jedi Master named Sin Dralik, who was actually the main lightsaber instructor for all Jedi. When Anakin approached him, he was in the middle of a lesson with 2 other Padawans, so he quickly stopped and Anakin went in to attack them. During their fight, Anakin was able to slice down one of the Padawans and then eventually choke the other while fighting Dralik with just one hand. Let's just say Dralik didn't last much longer after that. Why did Anakin hate training with Yoda? Although Yoda was known as one of the wisest Jedi, did you know that Anakin hated training with him? Well, when Anakin was just a Padawan, Obi-Wan would sometimes be sent on dangerous missions, and because of how young Anakin was, Obi-Wan was forced to leave him behind. However, after he'd leave, Anakin would then be trained by Yoda, and now you'd probably think he'd love the idea of this, right? Well, actually no. Instead of fun activities like lightsaber training, Yoda forced him to sit all day and meditate with a bunch of other younglings. Anakin was so bored that he'd almost fall asleep during these sessions because in his eyes, he was already so much more skilled than the rest of the class. Due to this, Obi-Wan eventually decided to bring Anakin along with him on all of his missions. What was Anakin's Forbidden Force ability? Although Anakin was known as one of the most powerful Jedi throughout the entire order, did you know he actually used a forbidden ability? Well, this ability was no other than Force Scream. Force Scream was mainly used by darkside users and was summoned when the wielder would channel strong frustration, rage, or grief through the Force. This ability would then trigger shockwaves that could attack and even kill anybody that's nearby the user. One of the times we see Anakin use this was in the 2003 Clone Wars series after he defeated Asajj Ventress. As Ventress fell off the cliff, Anakin unleashed his rage, channeling his inner dark side by using Force Scream. Why did the Republic love Anakin so much? As the Clone Wars raged on, the Jedi were hated by the public in many ways. Before, they used to be seen as keepers of the peace, but over time, many saw them as just military leaders. Despite this, however, the public did admire one Jedi, and that was Anakin Skywalker. Unlike the other Jedi, the Republic saw Anakin as a courageous leader, and he became beloved by many. However, this was all because of Palpatine. Because Palpatine controlled both sides of the war, he manipulated the media in many ways to paint Anakin out as a hero, and he even sent him on certain missions that he knew he would win. This was all done to not only boost his ego, but to also gain the public's trust once the Empire rose to power. If you enjoyed this lore compilation about Anakin and you want to learn more about Palpatine's best stories, then make sure to click the video in the middle of the screen right here.